Here's the Department of Justice last year saying their precious metals desk was a criminal enterprise. They got fined $920 million, and yet they're not leading in market share. We know they've dominated gold and silver. Is there any cause for concern on that one? Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, and I am joined by Golden Dave Kranzler. No more of this Denver Dave Kranzler. Golden boy live from Golden, Colorado. Guess by the time you watch this won't be live, but Dave, silver and gold market update. Happy Thanksgiving, buddy. How's it going? How are you doing tonight?
Thanksgiving's not till tomorrow, but same to you.
Well, this episode will be broadcast on Thanksgiving, so way to be a stickler for the details. David, before we get started, today's episode sponsored by Dolly Varden Silver Corps. Many of you found out about Dolly Varden at Silverfest, and I know Dolly's been around for a while, although under new management with Sean Kunkun, who is one of the mining executives I've been more impressed with, if any, in my time following this. So, Dave, perhaps we'll have to introduce you to Sean. I think you'd like him, and I think if you met Sean, you might want to buy some Dolly Varden shares and run that one by you soon, because I know folks always want to know the scoop in Dave's Mining Stock Journal. So, with that said, thoughts on gold and silver as we kick off a holiday weekend?
Thoughts on gold and silver?
I thought you were looking up tomorrow's price over there or something.
No. Tomorrow's price?
Yeah.
I think tomorrow's price will be either lower or higher than today's price.
All right, smart ass.
How's that?
I'm going to call you out at this time, since you want to get all tricky. Since we're recording on Wednesday, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. This time, I will guarantee you it's going to be the same price as it is today. So, young whippersnapper one, old timer is about to get on the board, because I got some questions here. I wonder if, maybe it's just silver manipulation boy making a big fuss out of something, or if this seems bizarre to anyone else, because you see here, exclusive, JP Morgan dominates gold market with record $1 billion precious metals revenue. I don't know, maybe I'm reading into this, but it's almost phrased as if, I don't know if this is a good thing, but a couple weeks back, JP Morgan Chase to pay record $920 million to resolve investigations into its trading practices, which was their manipulation of the precious metals. And let's not forget, they rigged the treasury market too. So,
And foreign currency, FX trading,
well, Dave,
pretty much everything.
We're going to try and keep this one to a half hour tonight, so we can't go into all of the markets that JP Morgan's manipulated. But what I'd love to get your take on dominates the gold market. Here's the Department of Justice last year saying their precious metals desk was a criminal enterprise. They got fined $920 million, and yet they're not leading in market share. We know they've dominated gold and silver. Is there any cause for concern on that one?
There's no more cause for concern than there has been cause for concern for the last 20 years about JP Morgan's activities in the precious metals market. So now they I can't remember the exact date, the exact time period, but they originally were the primary silver market maker on the COMEX. When I first got into this sector back in 2001, they dominated the silver trading on the COMEX, and they weren't really significant in gold. And then they they established a vault, a COMEX vault for gold, and I want to say around 2009 maybe, or 2010. I don't remember exactly when. And then all of a sudden, not only were they the largest holder or depository for silver on the COMEX, within, I want to say probably within 2 years, maybe less, they became the largest holder of gold on the COMEX. So I think, you could probably pretty much say they dominate the precious metals trading.
Well, Dave, fortunately, we don't have to do any guesswork about it. I'm going to pull up a little sample of the Bart Chilton interview, where, again, for folks who are unaware, Bart Chilton, former CFTC regulator, presided over the agency's investigation into silver manipulation. And let's take a listen at what he had to say.
Well, there's some stuff that's out there in the public that I'm not sure everybody, put together. Most people did. I would never, for example, and I won't now, say that, there was a bank, and name it, that held, close to 40% of the silver market at one point. But the news reports, people surmise it's JP Morgan Chase, and the news reports in the public record showed that when Bear Stearns collapsed, that their silver positions got transferred over to JP Morgan. Mm-hmm. And we, the CFTC, had to approve those positions because those positions, the layman positions, the Bear Stearns positions, the Bear Stearns positions, when they came over, combined with JP's positions, were so large that they violated the position limits on which one trader could hold. So the CFTC had to approve that JP could take on the Bear silver positions. So people want to do the math, they can do the math on who had the largest silver. But there was an exception there that we made, and that's in the public record. What's not really looked at too much is that we made that allowance for a time certain, and I forget exactly how long it was, but it was not years. It was, months. Maybe it was 3 months or 6 months, or maybe it was 9 months. I think it was probably 6, but I don't recall. And that allowance was for them to be able to get out of those positions. And after this time was coming to an end, the runway which we had given for them to get out of the positions in excess of position limits, they were nowhere close to getting out of them. Matter of fact, at one point, they'd bought even more.
So there you go, Dave. And I might add that it's the exact time silver is plummeting from 21 to 9. And it's just amazing that you have this fine, you have the CFTC, you have the Department of Justice, and at the end of the day, here, these are the same guys not doing well in the market, dominating the market according to Reuters. So,
if I may, I'd like to just circle back to some terminology that Bart used there.
Please.
He said that the CFTC had to approve the positions taken on by JP Morgan. Really, the correct terminology should have been the CFTC had to rubber stamp the positions taken on by JP Morgan, because it had nothing to do with the government examining it and debating whether or not to let it happen. It was already a fait accompli. It's called regulatory capture. So, the CFTC is nothing but a charade. It's lipstick put on a giant pig for public presentation purposes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And that's why, JP Morgan is referred to as dominating the gold market, despite the fact that, it seems like every 6 months now they're paying fines for transgressions related to their precious metals activity.
Yeah, it does seem that way. It's a little bit incredible, but we'll just keep reporting the action as it develops. Dave, first of all, I want to congratulate you. I see you're pulling it off. The appearance of cool, calm, and collected. I was thinking about not blowing you up in the middle of the show, telling everybody about how. I mean, I'm trying to sleep last night. I'm getting text message after text message, like the phone's ringing. What does Kranzler want now? And he's like, yeah, Janet Yellen is in the Treasury Secretary. Now the Fed owns the entire government. And you were so excited. And here you are today, like keeping it all together. So I'll let you have your time to gloat. I know you're thrilled.
I mean, what do you want me to say? It essentially, I mean, that basically puts the Federal Reserve into the executive branch of the government. I mean, there's no other way to describe what that appointment is. And I think I find it really amusing that the mainstream media, financial analysts, and all these other sycophants out there are applauding the appointment of Janet Yellen. Well, it's really, if this system were to operate the way it's supposed to operate on paper, Janet Yellen wouldn't have even been a consideration.
Yeah, but Dave, you don't get it. She's going to fix the economy. See that there?
You know, in the early days, before the gold window was closed, and even after that, up until, well, most of the Treasury secretaries typically were guys who came from industry. CEOs of industrial companies, manufacturing companies, guys who knew how to run businesses, understood accounting, right? And ever since, and I think there's been a couple that were Wall Street type guys, over the history of the department, but it's usually like bona fide Main Street businessmen were then asked to become Treasury secretaries, part of their service. Now they're putting in, Wall Streeters. It's kind of like having the fox watch the hen house. And now they basically have a Federal Reserve hand puppet that's going to be the Treasury Secretary. I think it's just it's the downward descent of deviance in this country, and to me it's just emblematic of the fact that it's a collapsing empire.
Dave, what it really shows, as you can see here, is that Biden is taking stuff pretty seriously and definitely not pandering to the left. Yellen is a very serious economic thinker, and there's some serious problems to deal with. So you should be aware of that.
I wouldn't say she's an economic thinker. That's not necessarily a good thing. She's basically a rubber stamper of the decision at levels that go well over her head to print more money. And now you're basically, I mean, this is what I put in my mining stock journal. The appointment of Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary fully removes the Chinese wall that is supposed to separate the Fed and the government. I believe her appointment signals a decision to transition monetary policy into the unfettered implementation of modern monetary theory. This will encompass a record amount of Treasury issuance, which started Monday with a record amount of 2-year and 5-year note issuance. The Fed will be required to fund a large portion of the coming bond issuance or risk a rapid escalation of interest rates, especially at the longer end of the curve. In fact, yesterday, there was a report out that the Fed is considering buying a higher amount of longer dated treasuries. Now, why would that be? Because they know a lot more issuance is coming and they have to buy up those treasuries. Otherwise, they're going to risk losing the ability to cap the longer end of the curve. In a nutshell, this is modern monetary theory, and it's exceedingly bullish for the precious metal sector.
Yeah, I would say so. Maybe she's paving the way. 2024, we can get Bernanke for president, because I think they already have like a chopper that goes to the White House lawn so we could throw the $100 bills out. Either that or the Fed's plan is Bernanke is just going to ask everybody to close their eyes, count to 27 trillion, see if he can solve it during that time period. But Dave, don't worry. The action is just picking up on today's show. I got a trick question for you. Do you know what the Fed's mandate actually is? It was a dual.
Well, I mean, originally it was supposed to be, manage the policies toward full employment and
Stable pricing, right?
and stable prices. Yeah.
It was two-parter, right?
Yeah.
Because I told you, I called you like 2 or 3 years ago. It'd be when I was looking at it one day. Weird hobbies I have. And I noticed they had added a third part, and somehow that came up the other day, so I checked on it. Did you know it's now grown to a quintet, a 5-piece? Is that quintet? I think so.
Yes.
They're just performs 5 general functions to promote the economy, nation's monetary policy to promote maximum employment, stable prices. So actually that's lumped into one. So it's really 6 now. Or no, here, and moderate. Okay, so bullet 1 contains a dual mandate. And yeah, this is the third leg they added in, and moderate long-term interest rates in the U.S. economy. When did that get included?
Someone actually has read an article several months ago. Someone had pointed that out.
I mean, that's interesting. Then we have now the Fed's got promoting the stability of the financial system to minimize and contain systemic risks. Clearly, they're on top of that. Safety and soundness of individual financial institutions that required swap lines we've never heard about. I mean, there's a lot of extra stuff they've tacked onto the resume, wouldn't you say?
Hey, it's all designed to facilitate modern monetary theory. Print an unlimited amount of money, let the government issue an unlimited amount of debt, and the Fed buys that debt. Promote, stability of financial institutions. I don't know why it's a problem to let banks go bankrupt. That's how a free market is supposed to work. You're essentially looking at a planned economy there. That's what that Fed mandate is. It's no different than the old USSR. You're probably too young to remember that for the most part, but it's basically a system, because now you have the Fed and the government are basically one in one, right? And when people say the Fed, it sounds like some big august institution that's looking after your best interest. Well, no, the Fed is owned by the banks. You look at the equity structure of how the Fed is structured, it's owned by the banks. That's just a fact. It's not conspiracy theory. I'm not making shit up. That's a fact. So you essentially have a planned economic and government system that essentially is controlled by the banks. And that's what you just read off there, those bullet points. That essentially is the foundation for that. They're telling you. It's not like they're trying to hide it. It's right on their website. We've got, this system is no different than the Communist Party system in China or the old Soviet system when it was the USSR. Isn't this interesting? Ironic? Russia's economic system and political system more closely resembles capitalism and democracy than the US does. Now, if you had told me that back in the 1970s and the 80s when I was studying all this, and looking forward to making an honest living on Wall Street, if you had told me that, by 2020, the United States is going to look like the old USSR, I would have, sent you to Bellevue Hospital to the 4th floor down in the Murray Hill neighborhood of New York City.
4th floor is for the silver bugs?
It's for the lunatics.
Well, I mean, now the banks own the White House too, or at least sinking their claws in. So,
well, there's always been there's been extreme regulatory capture for a long time, but I mean, now, at least on paper, there was supposed to be, separation between the Federal Reserve, which is the banks, the big banks, the too big to fail banks, and the executive branch of government, and there's not anymore. It's gone.
Yes, well, that certainly does appear to be the case.
I
Dave,
mean, the appointment of Janet Yellen is nothing but a Trojan horse. I mean, they're you know, the powers that be are pulling out the old tricks used by the Greek Empire.
well, it seems like these have been used by a lot of empires, and at least appreciate you come on and provide a roadmap each week so investors and savers can stay a step ahead. In fact, speaking of which, before I get to our next story here, I was thinking if in terms of silver, maybe instead of worrying about, what the price is, but since you can't, it's not really that safe to put cash in the bank, which used to be the most conservative thing you could do, and you get your little interest rate and everybody's good, right?
Little passbook.
So at least when I buy physical silver, I don't know, I think a mining share is the same way as well, which maybe most people wouldn't, and that's fine. I get that. But like silver, it's like if, let's say, forget about whether you think it's going to go up or down or the COMEX, this or that. But I mean, if you just want to like put money somewhere where at least it's going to maintain its value, especially over the long term, I mean, that's really, doesn't silver really fit into that role now? And another way of looking at it? I'm going to take that
Yes,
as
indeed. 10-ounce maple leaf.
all righty. Well,
Yes. I mean,
thank you.
here, the value of the dollar has depreciated 99% against gold. And you can do the same calculation for silver. And silver, I think, was what, about $3 back in 1971? Something like, I don't know, whatever it was. The value of the dollar has depreciated 99% versus gold. So, and they're not going to stop devaluing until it's gone down 100%, which means the dollar will collapse. So why would you want to hold the wealth that you've created from your hard work in depreciating dollars? I mean, to me, the no-brainer trade of a lifetime is to own gold and silver, and you can, swing for the fence and supplement that by buying some mining stocks.
Yeah, but isn't Janet Yellen going to support the strong dollar policy?
The market doesn't think so. I mean, the dollar's down quite a bit since the announcement of her appointment. Now, her appointment still has to be approved, but again, like the CFTC approving JP Morgan's taking on Bear Stearns' silver book, it's a rubber stamp process. It's just, Congressman, I don't know if she has to get approved by the Senate or the House or both. I can't remember. Who cares? But there's going to make, you're going to turn on the day that they have the hearing, for her, that precedes her appointment. They'll make a big thing out of it on financial media, and they'll show, some of the more radical congressmen will like grandstand and ask her, sort of tough questions and make it seem like they're actually doing their job and their due diligence. But no, it's a rubber stamp process.
Well, there we go.
I mean, the dollar, let's see here. When was her appointment announced, or her proposed appointment? Last Thursday or Friday, I think. So, a week ago, well, no, less than a week ago, the dollar's down. Oh, it broke 92, I see, just barely. But, the dollar's been getting hit ever since the announcement of her, because anyone who kind of somewhat understands what's going on and has the ability to think knows that her appointment means we've got full-blown MMT coming, and that's going to devalue the dollar even further.
Well, it does seem like we are headed that direction. Last one.
That's why China and Japan have been unloading treasuries. I mean, you look at the latest TIC report. I mean, China continues to reduce their they'd sell it all at once if they could, but it'd be like urinating on their own shoes, on their own leg, because that's if they just said, hey, we got $1 trillion treasuries, bid, wanted, and comp, the price is irrelevant, they're guaranteed all to trade. What do you think that would do to the treasury market?
Well, it'd make a little dent in there, and looks like somebody else was trading their cash for a commodity. Saw a spike in the cocoa futures price, Dave. Looks like Hershey's wanted their chocolate. Any thoughts on this? And is this similar to what could conceivably happen one day in silver and the industrial users?
Maybe. I don't know. I saw the story. I didn't really look into it. I mean, I didn't have time to figure out what's going on in the cocoa market. I think where you're really potentially going to see fireworks in the precious metals market is when large entities that are safekeeping large amounts of gold and silver in COMEX vaults and in LBMA vaults decide that they want to remove that gold and silver from those vaults. That's when you're going to see all hell break loose, and that's when the fun begins for us.
Do you want to know how I'm going to know when that's happening?
Love to know.
I'm going to wait till my email says this week's Mining Stock Journal is here, because that's going to be the first place it's covered. And maybe Dave, you could tell us a little bit about Mining Stock Journal and why that's going to be the place where the scoops are brought in the mining sector.
Well, if that starts to happen in between issues, because it's bi-weekly, every other Thursday I released the latest issue early today, so people could, if they decide to read it over Thanksgiving, or maybe apparently there's a toilet paper shortage, so if they want to print it out and use it as toilet paper, that's whatever. But I'd probably do an inter-issue announcement, something like that. So it'd certainly be a significant event if all of a sudden you started seeing gold and silver disappearing from London and New York vaults.
Well, it certainly will be. I don't know. I think it's an inevitability.
Eventually, yeah.
Could be that we're a couple years off. I wouldn't have the first clue. I tend to mentally envision sooner than later. Although, again, hey, if someone's selling you a $10 bill for $4, I will continue to follow that strategy of, well, if I have to buy shares or silver and leave it there, and I'll take my chances on that over Ben Bernanke and the Goon Squad and their silly, funny money. So, Dave, thank you as always for this week's silver and gold market update. And folks, to find out a little bit more about our sponsor tonight, Dolly Varden, well, there's a video with Sean Kunkin coming your way now.